She only wanted to buy bread. It was supposed to be an ordinary morning, quiet, simple, one of those days when nothing extraordinary is meant to happen. But sometimes fate chooses the simplest days to change someone's life forever. When she walked into the bakery, the smell of freshly baked bread almost managed to comfort her, almost. Because just a few steps from the counter, something left her completely frozen in place. In the clerk's hair, holding back a strand of chestnut curls, was the exact same barrette her daughter had been wearing the day she disappeared 23 years ago. Her heart slammed against her chest, her vision blurred, and all the questions she had buried for decades returned with a force that shattered her. How did that barrette end up there? Is it just similar, or is it exactly the same? Why is the clerk wearing it? Did someone find it? Does someone know something? Or is someone trying to tell her something? She stepped back, then another step. But no matter how much she wanted to run, she couldn't. Because, deep down, she understood a truth impossible to ignore. That object could not be there by coincidence. And in that instant, her life returned to the place where everything had stopped. 23 years had passed, but that morning had begun like any other. She prepared her coffee, opened the window to let in a bit of fresh air, and left the house wrapped in routine. She carried the same cloth shopping bag she'd used for years, the one with frayed edges from a lifetime spent trying, half successfully, to rebuild herself. The street was quiet. A dog slept on the sidewalk. A neighbor watered her plants. And everything fit perfectly into that everyday landscape where nothing, absolutely nothing, should have altered the course of her day. But inside her, though she never admitted it, there was always a part that remained alert, a part that never accepted the word missing, a part that still heard in silence her daughter's voice calling her mom. When she pushed open the bakery door, the sound of the little bell rang just like any other day, a soft, normal jingle. And yet, something inside her chest tightened, as if her body knew before her mind that something was about to break. She approached the counter while searching in her purse for the exact amount of money. The clerk had her back turned, arranging trays, moving with the natural ease of someone who never expects to be watched. And then, in a tiny, almost imperceptible gesture, the young woman brushed a lock of hair aside, and the barrette glimmered under the bakery lights. That glint struck her like lightning. The same pearly tone, the same oval shape, the same small scratch on the right side. Her breath stopped. Her hand shook. The bill she held slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. It couldn't be a coincidence. It couldn't just be a similar accessory. That barrette was her daughter's. She was sure of it. The young woman turned around and smiled naturally, unaware of the earthquake she had just unleashed. But she couldn't smile back. She just stared at her frozen, searching for something more, a mark, a gesture, a trace of familiarity. Her mind screamed questions she didn't know how to form. The young woman frowned, concerned. "Are you all right, ma'am?" She opened her mouth to answer, but not a single word came out, because that barrette, that tiny forgotten piece, had opened a door that had been shut for more than 2 decades. A door to a past she wasn't sure she could face. But now, she no longer had a choice. The clerk's question hung in the air, as if time had frozen around the two of them. "Are you all right, ma'am?" she repeated, this time a little softer. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to react. Yes, I'm sorry," she murmured. "I just got a bit dizzy." She bent down to pick up the bill from the floor, but her hands were still shaking. When she stood up again, she made an almost superhuman effort not to stare directly at the barrette. And yet, her eyes returned to it on their own, as if they had a will of their own. It can't be. It can't be hers. It can't be the same one. Her heart pounded like it had that afternoon 23 years ago, when everything changed. While the young woman placed the bread into a paper bag, the sound of the bag crinkling blended with another sound in her memory, the distant echo of a door closing, a child's voice laughing in the hallway, and the strange silence that followed. "Would you like anything else?" the clerk asked. That phrase yanked her back to the present. She blinked several times, as if waking from a dream that felt too real. No, no, thank you. Just the bread. She paid without really looking, feeling that every second inside that bakery pressed harder on her chest. The young woman handed her the bag with a kind smile, unaware that for the woman before her, that simple, everyday gesture was tied to a question that no one had been able to answer in more than 2 decades. What really happened that day? When she stepped outside, the air felt colder, heavier. She walked a few steps without direction, as if her feet were moving on their own, while her mind forcibly reopened a file she had tried to keep shut for years. She remembered her daughter spinning in front of the hallway mirror, hair pulled back, the same pearly barrette shining under the light. "Do I look all right, Mom?" she had asked, with that mixture of innocence and hope only children have. Distracted with 1,000 things in her mind, she barely lifted her gaze. "You look perfect, sweetheart, but don't be late, all right?" She never imagined that would be the last time she saw her daughter wearing that barrette. She never imagined that hours later the house would fill with police officers, unanswered questions, and a silence that somehow still lingers there today. She stopped at the corner, gripping the bag of bread so tightly the paper wrinkled. 23 years. 23 years repeating the same story at police stations, on TV programs, to curious neighbors. 23 years hearing phrases that never comforted her. Time heals everything. Maybe it's better not to know. You have to move on. She moved on, or at least she pretended to. She learned to work, to smile in photos, to answer, "I'm fine," without being fine. She learned to live with the idea that maybe she would never get an answer. Until today, until this morning, until that barrette. She turned slowly and looked back toward the bakery from the corner. Through the window, she saw the young woman helping other customers, moving naturally, as if she wasn't wearing in her hair an object that belonged to another life, another child, another time. Do I ask her? Do I say something? What if she laughs? What if she knows nothing? What if she knows too much? The fear of the answer was almost as strong as the fear of continuing without one. She took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to go back in, point at the barrette and scream, "Where did you get that?" Another part, the one that had learned to survive, whispered, "Don't stir what you can't change." In the end, she did the only thing she knew how to do when the pain became too much. She went home in silence, but that night, while the freshly bought bread grew hard on the table, she understood that something had changed forever. Because no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, the image of that barrette would not leave her mind, and the more she tried to forget it, the clearer one impossible thought became. If that barrette has resurfaced, maybe the truth is trying to find her, too. Night fell early, as it almost always did in her neighborhood, but this darkness carried a different weight. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was a blanket that brought with it memories she had avoided for years. She sat at the kitchen table with her hands clasped, while the barrette, that impossible image, kept circling in her mind like an echo from the past. She remembered the last day with her daughter with painful clarity. Memory can be unfair. It erases birthdays, happy conversations, beautiful little moments, but it never erases the instant something breaks. That day had begun like any other. Her daughter woke up early, put on her favorite dress, and, as she always did, asked her mother to help her tie her hair. "Can you put the barrette on me?" she asked, holding it with her tiny fingers as if it were a treasure. It was her favorite accessory, not because it was pretty, but because it had been a gift from her grandmother, the only person who spoiled her without limits. The barrette had a soft, pearly shine and a small scratch on the right side, a detail almost invisible that now, so many years later, allowed her mother to recognize it without doubt. She placed it in her hair, turning it gently. "There, you look perfect," she said, not realizing those would be among their last innocent words together. Her daughter left the house like any other day. She planned to stop by the bookstore after school, maybe buy a new notebook. Nothing strange, nothing out of the ordinary. That's why, when she didn't return at the usual time, worry took a few minutes to appear. Minutes that, with time, became a permanent torment. The police arrived that same night. They searched the neighborhood, questioned neighbors, looked for clues. They found some footprints near the park, a toy abandoned on the ground, and nothing else. No sign of the barrette, no clothing, no reliable witness, only emptiness. For days, weeks, months, she desperately searched for any fragment of an answer. She called hospitals, police stations, TV programs. She did everything a mother can do when the entire world turns its back on her. But no lead progressed. No version was confirmed. The case went cold. The years passed, and everything remained wrapped in cruel silence. However, as she remembered, something new began to disturb her. If the barrette had never been found, if no one had ever claimed to pick it up, if it was never sold, given away, or returned, how did it end up in a stranger's hair 20 years later? The question was so absurd it hurt, but it also opened a thread of hope she didn't know whether to hold on to or cut. She stood up slowly, opened a drawer full of old documents, and took out a blue folder worn by time. Inside were all the photos of her daughter wearing the barrette, birthdays, first days of school, family outings. Each picture carried the glow of a time that would never return, and yet that little nacre piece had crossed her path again. She sat down again, spread the photos on the table, and her eyes stopped on one in particular, her daughter laughing, head slightly tilted to the left, the barrette catching a ray of light. It was the same one. The same shape, the same light, the same small scratch on the right side. Her heart lurched, because understanding that meant accepting that perhaps someone else knew what had happened that day, someone who had remained in the shadows for years, someone who maybe never wanted the truth to come to light, until now. Despite the fear, one phrase began repeating in her mind with dizzying clarity. If the barrette has returned, the story isn't over. And for the first time in a very long time, she decided not to silence that voice. She slept very little that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the barrette shining in the shop assistant's hair like some kind of beacon from the past. These weren't just memories. It was a physical sensation, as if something inside her chest refused to stay still. At dawn, she made a decision she had been avoiding for years. She was going back to the bakery, not as a distracted customer, but as someone searching for answers. She looked at herself in the mirror before leaving. A tired face, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a rush. For a moment she wondered if she was truly ready to relive all of it. But what other choice did she have? Pretending she hadn't seen anything felt like betraying her own daughter. She left the house with slow but steady steps. The neighborhood looked the same as always. The man sweeping the sidewalk, the woman walking her dog, the soft murmur of everyday life. And yet, for her, nothing was the same. Now every corner reminded her that the truth might have always been closer than she imagined. When the bakery appeared at the end of the street, she felt her heart pounding against her ribs. The little bell rang as she pushed the door. But this time it wasn't a normal sound. It felt almost like an announcement that she was crossing an invisible boundary between the past and the present. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the smell of freshly baked bread. But that wasn't what caught her attention. There she was, the same young woman from the morning before, the same chestnut hair, the same pearly barrette holding the side strand in place. For a second, she thought about turning around and leaving, pretending nothing had happened, but her feet didn't obey. She stayed there a few meters from the counter, staring openly. The young woman recognized her. "Hello, Mom," she greeted with a kind smile. "Bread of the day again?" Her voice was soft, normal, with no hint of tension. That unsettled her even more. How could someone wear such an important piece in her hair without feeling the weight she felt? The woman took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Excuse me," she began, feeling her throat tighten. "I wanted to ask you something, a little strange." The young woman placed her hands on the counter, curious. "Of course, tell me." Her eyes drifted toward the barrette. She could no longer pretend. That hair clip you're wearing," she said, pointing timidly at it. "Where did you get it?" The question lingered in the air. The young woman instinctively brought her hand to her hair, touching the barrette as if she had suddenly become aware that she was being observed. "This one?" she asked, surprised. "I don't know. I've had it for many years. I think it was my mother's, or someone close to her. Honestly, I don't remember well." Her answer was vague, confusing, as if that piece had always been part of her life without her ever questioning its origin. The woman felt a mix of frustration and hope. She needed more. "May I see it up close?" she dared to ask. "It just looks very familiar to me." The young woman hesitated for a moment, but then nodded with the innocence of someone who hides nothing. She removed the barrette carefully and held it in her palm, extending it toward her. The entire world seemed to shrink into that tiny object. The woman reached out, touching the pearly surface. There it was, the scratch on the right side. The same texture, the same soft shine. There was no denying it. It was the same barrette. Her eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure you don't know where it came from?" she insisted, her voice cracking. "No one gave it to you. You didn't find it somewhere." The young woman blinked, confused by such an intense reaction. "All I know is that I've had it for a long time," she replied. "I think my grandmother gave it to me when I was little. She always said it was special, but she never explained why." The word grandmother hit her chest like a sudden revelation. Grandmother. Her daughter also had a grandmother who loved giving her presents. A grandmother who died not long after the disappearance. A grandmother who would never have let go of that barrette willingly. Suddenly, a terrifying possibility crossed her mind. What if this young woman was far more connected to her story than she imagined? She forced herself to stay calm. "Is your grandmother still alive?" she asked cautiously. The young woman lowered her gaze, nervously playing with the barrette between her fingers. "No, she passed away a few years ago, but she always said that some things find their place when they're meant to." The phrase sent a chill down her spine. Things that find their place. What if this barrette now was trying to find its own? She swallowed the tears, threatening to escape. She couldn't reveal the whole truth here, all at once. Not without being sure, not without knowing who this girl really was. "Sorry if I insisted so much," she finally said. "It just reminded me of someone very important to me." The young woman smiled gently, putting the barrette back in her hair. "Maybe that's why it caught your attention. Sometimes objects bring back memories we didn't know were still alive, right?" She nodded silently, but inside her mind, the noise was deafening. Because for the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel alone facing the past. There was another person in the middle of this story, and somehow she sensed that this girl was a key piece. She left the bakery with the feeling that nothing had been resolved, and at the same time that everything had just begun. The air outside hit her face as if someone had suddenly pushed her out of a dream. She walked aimlessly, clutching the bag of bread against her chest, a bag that no longer weighed anything. It felt light, almost symbolic, as if it represented that fragile line between the life she was living and the life she might have had if everything had been different. Each step sparked more questions. Who was that young woman, really? Why did she have the barrette? What role had the grandmother played in all of this? There were too many pieces that didn't fit, but there was also something deeper, almost instinctive. A feeling she had buried for years, and that now resurfaced like an unstoppable wave. It wasn't hope, it wasn't fear, it was intuition, the intuition of a mother who recognizes signs the rest of the world ignores. She stopped at a corner, breathing heavily. She knew she couldn't remain still. That young woman, her face, her way of speaking, her clear gaze, had awakened something inside her, a familiar presence she couldn't name. It was absurd, even irrational, but she couldn't ignore it. She returned home, closed the door, and leaned against it, letting the silence wrap around her. She looked at the kitchen table. Her daughter's photos were still there, spread out since the night before. She walked toward them slowly, as if the images might crumble with a single breath. She picked up one particular photo, her daughter's school portrait at 9 years old, wearing the barrette in her hair and that timid smile that always lit up the room. And then her eyes widened. There was something about that smile, that gesture, the way her daughter tilted her head slightly to the left. Something the young woman at the bakery also did without noticing. Could it be? Am I seeing what I want to see, or what's actually there? She shook her head, trying to regain logic. Don't jump to conclusions, she told herself. But the thought had already been planted, growing without permission. She sat down and opened the blue folder where she kept everything related to the disappearance. Old statements, newspaper clippings, date notes, discarded hypotheses. A sad archive that weighed more emotionally than physically. Digging through the papers, she found an old handwritten note from herself that said, "Review names of women from the neighborhood who moved away after the case." She vaguely remembered writing that when desperation pushed her to analyze every tiny detail, but she had never reviewed it. She never had the strength. She grabbed a notebook, a pencil, and wrote the most important question. What is the young woman's name? She realized that in their entire exchange, she had never asked. She hadn't looked at a name tag. She hadn't seen any identification. She had confronted the object that had tormented her for years, but not the basics. She decided she would return the next day, not as a woman lost in memories, but as someone searching for concrete information. However, before she could close the notebook, her phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. She looked at the screen, her heart pounding like a drum. "Hi, I'm the girl from the bakery. I found something in one of my grandmother's boxes. I think you should see it." Her blood froze. The phone almost slipped from her hands. She read the message a second time, a third, making sure she wasn't imagining it. The young woman wrote again, "It's a photo. I don't know why, but I feel like it has something to do with you." A photo, a box from the grandmother, something that has to do with her. Her mind filled with white noise. She could feel it. The story was moving on its own, as if someone were pulling an invisible thread. With trembling fingers, she typed, "Can we meet? Today?" The reply came almost instantly. "Yes, after I close the bakery. At 7. The woman remained motionless. These were the first clear coordinates in more than 20 years. A meeting, a photo, and a young woman who might be... No, she couldn't say it yet, but the possibility was already on the table. She looked at the photos spread out and whispered, "Whatever it is, I'm ready." The rest of the day passed with unbearable slowness. Every sound felt louder, every minute longer. She tried to distract herself. She set water to boil, tidied the living room, opened and closed drawers with no real purpose, but nothing worked. The anticipation weighed on her chest like a stone. At 6:45, she left the house. She walked toward the bakery with short steps, as if she wanted to move forward and retreat at the same time. The sky was cloudy, a grey tone wrapping the streets in an almost reverent silence, as if the entire world knew that something was about to be revealed. When she arrived, the shop lights were still on. Through the glass, she could see the young woman cleaning the counter, putting away the last trays. She was alone. Her hands trembled. What if this photo changes everything? What if it confirms what I fear? What if it confirms what I want? She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The bell rang softly, this time not as a warning, but as a reminder that she had returned to the epicenter of everything. The young woman looked up and smiled with a touch of nervousness. "I'm glad you came." The woman nodded, unable to trust her own voice. The clerk approached her, holding a small box in her hands. It was wooden, very old, with a carved flower on the lid. "I found it in my grandmother's closet," she explained. "I had never seen it before. And when I opened it, well, I felt I should show you." The woman didn't blink. "May I see it?" The young woman opened the box carefully. Inside was a photograph, yellowed with age, folded at one corner. The woman took it delicately, and her heart almost stopped. It was a photo of her daughter, small, smiling, wearing the barrette. Exactly like the photo she kept in her blue folder, but there was something else, something that knocked the air out of her, something impossible. In the photo, next to her daughter, was an older woman, a woman she recognized immediately, the grandmother of the young woman from the bakery. Her knees weakened. She held onto a chair to keep from falling. "Do you know the girl?" the young woman asked, unable to hide her unease. The woman closed her eyes, swallowing a knot of emotion that threatened to tear her in two. "That girl, she's my daughter." The clerk brought a hand to her mouth. "Your daughter, the one who disappeared 23 years ago," she finished, her voice breaking. A heavy silence fell between them. The young woman stared at the photo over and over, as if searching for a rational explanation for something that couldn't possibly be rational. "But Dunn, how did this photo end up among my grandmother's things?" she murmured. The woman felt a deep vertigo. She had wanted answers for years. She had begged for a clue, but she had never imagined something like this. A direct, intimate, familiar connection, hidden for decades. "Where did your grandmother live?" she asked, clinging to the last thread of logic. The young woman took a deep breath. "On the same street where you lived when your daughter disappeared." The woman felt the world open beneath her feet. One street, one barrette, one photo, a grandmother who never explained where a special object came from. Everything was too close, too connected. The young woman continued, her voice trembling. "My grandmother always used to say something I never understood. She said that some truths are kept to protect, and that they only come out when they're meant to." The words cut through her like lightning. What truth had that woman hidden all those years? Why did she have a photo of her daughter? Why did she keep the barrette? What was she protecting her from? The woman lifted the photo once more. Her daughter's face seemed to look right at her, as if speaking from the past. She said, struggling for breath, "I need to know who your grandmother really was. Everything. I need to know everything." The young woman nodded slowly. "Then there's something else you need to see." She pulled out a folded sheet of paper from inside the box, an old paper, handwritten in the grandmother's handwriting. The woman felt a chill as the young woman unfolded it. On the first line, there was only one sentence. "If you are reading this, it's because I can no longer keep the secret." The woman gripped the box tightly. There was no turning back now. The young woman held the sheet of paper with both hands, as if afraid it might tear just by breathing on it. It was old, ivory-colored, darkened by time. The letters, written in firm yet elegant handwriting, seemed to carry an emotional weight that could still be felt even after so many years. The woman swallowed hard. She knew, deep in her soul, that what she was about to read could change everything. It could destroy her or save her. The young woman looked at her with a mixture of fear and responsibility. "I don't know what it means," she whispered, "but I think this letter was written for you." The woman nodded slowly, unable to take her eyes off the paper. The young woman began to read softly. "If you are reading this, it's because I am no longer here, and because the time has come for the truth to finally come to light." A shiver ran through both of them. "Many years ago, I found a little girl alone, lost, crying in the street. She said a name I didn't understand. She didn't know where she came from. She only knew she was afraid." The woman pressed her lips together to hold back a sob. That was her daughter. It had to be. The girl continued reading, her voice trembling more and more. "I tried to find her family. I went out several times, asked in houses and shops. But everyone told me no one recognized her. She was so small, so disoriented, so vulnerable." The woman shook her head without realizing it. No, that couldn't be true. They had searched everywhere. The police had checked every corner. How was it possible that no one had seen her? How was it possible that her daughter had been so close, and yet so far? The young woman took a deep breath and continued, "I didn't know what to do. I never wanted to replace anyone. I only tried to protect her. I was afraid the police wouldn't take good care of her, afraid they would return her to a place where no one was waiting, afraid of hurting her without meaning to. But I did. and I carried that guilt my entire life. The woman felt the world spinning too fast, as if the ground wanted to give way beneath her feet. Protection, fear, guilt. The young woman's grandmother had made a decision that had changed 2 lives forever. The girl continued, tears fogging her eyes. The little girl grew up. She became a good woman, noble, hard-working. She never lacked love. But every day that passed, I knew she wasn't mine. I knew her real mother was looking for her, that her real mother cried for her. The woman could no longer contain herself. A tear fell onto the paper. It was too much pain, too much time lost. I didn't know how to go back. I didn't know how to confess what I had done, and every year that passed it became harder. But I knew this secret could not die with me. The young woman lowered the letter. Both remained silent. The woman looked at the clerk with a mixture of disbelief, fear, and something she wasn't sure she should allow. Hope. What is this supposed to mean? She asked, her voice broken. What happened to the girl? The young woman swallowed. Her eyes gleamed with a strange, vulnerable brightness. I don't know, she admitted. My grandmother never told me anything. She only gave me this box before she died, and I never opened it until today. Did your grandmother live with you when you were little? The young woman nodded. Yes, my mother died young. My grandmother raised me. The woman felt her breath stop for a moment. Everything fit too well, too close to the heart. The dates, the age, the photo, the barrette, the story, the grandmother. Her soul trembled. How old are you? She asked, barely able to speak. The young woman hesitated for a moment, not understanding why the question mattered so much. 23, she answered. I turned 23 in March. Time stopped. 23 years. The woman's hand fell, unable to hold the bag, the photo, or even the air. The young woman, unaware of the weight that number carried, added, my grandmother always said that I came into her life as if I had fallen from the sky. The woman closed her eyes. It couldn't be, and yet everything inside her screamed that it was possible, that it had always been possible. The entire world seemed to hold its breath as a single thought formed with devastating clarity. What if this young woman is my daughter? The silence between them became so intense, it almost had shape. The woman felt each heartbeat echoing inside the empty bakery, amplifying the dizziness that was taking over her body. The young woman, not fully understanding what was happening, watched her with worry, as if sensing she was standing before something bigger than both of them. The woman opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. How do you say something like this? How do you pronounce a thought capable of splitting a soul in two? What if this young woman is my daughter? It was a phrase so heavy, so dangerous, she didn't even dare think it fully. The young woman took a step toward her. Are you okay? Do you want to sit down? The woman nodded, unable to trust her own legs. The young woman helped her sit on one of the chairs by the window. The bakery was completely closed to the public. The outside world felt distant, as if the two of them were trapped inside a moment suspended in time. The young woman brought her a glass of water. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I just thought that I should show you what I found. The woman took a sip, trying to catch her breath. No, it's not your fault, she murmured. It's just that this is a lot, too much. The young woman sat across from her, leaning her elbows on the table. What does all of this mean? She asked softly. Why does that girl look so much like me? And why did she have that hair clip? The woman felt a knot forming in her throat. Because, she said, trying to speak, because my daughter wore that clip. She had it on the day she disappeared. The young woman's eyes widened. Do you think? The woman lifted a hand, asking her to hold on. I don't know what I think. I only know that everything matches. Too much. The young woman looked down, taking a deep breath. My grandmother never talked about my childhood. She only said it was complicated, that she found me one day. And from then on, her voice trembled, I was her responsibility. The woman felt her chest burn. She had spent years imagining scenarios, inventing explanations, retracing her daughter's last steps. But she had never imagined the answer would be so close, that her daughter had grown up just a few streets away, that she had seen her without seeing her, that life, cruel and ironic, had made them walk the same streets without recognizing each other. The young woman clutched the letter tightly. If my grandmother did something wrong, if she hid something, I had no idea. I swear. The woman gently shook her head. I'm not blaming anyone. Not yet. But her eyes filled with tears. I need to know who you are, where you came from. I need to know the truth. The young woman nodded slowly. So do I. A deep silence settled between them. It was a fragile moment, almost sacred. Finally, the young woman spoke. My name is Lucia. The woman's heart skipped a beat. Lucia. That was the name she had wanted for her second daughter. If she had ever been able to have another, a name that had always meant light. The woman felt destiny was shouting at her. I need to ask you something, she said with a trembling voice. Lucia looked straight at her, without running. What question? The woman swallowed, knowing each word could change everything. Do you have any kind of mark on your arm? A small scar? Here, she said, touching her own right forearm. Lucia frowned and slowly lifted her sleeve, and there it was. A small scar, exactly in the same place where her daughter had injured herself at 4 years old when she fell playing in the garden. The woman brought a hand to her mouth. Lucia froze too. The world seemed to stop. The bakery lights flickered softly. Silence turned into a shared heartbeat. Lucia spoke first, in a whisper. What? What does this mean? The woman could no longer deny what she was seeing. With tears running uncontrollably, she whispered, It means you could be my daughter. Lucia let her arms fall, her eyes filled with an indescribable mix. Fear, hope, disbelief, and an old pain that had never had a name. But, she stammered, if I am your daughter, why didn't anyone look for me? The woman felt her heart break a second time. I did look for you, she whispered. I looked for you every day of my life. Lucia lowered her gaze, trembling. I always felt that. She paused, searching for the word, that something was missing, as if I didn't fully belong. And then she asked with a fragile, cracking voice, if I really am your daughter, why didn't I know sooner? The woman took her hand, her grip trembling like that of a child. Because someone made that decision for us. Lucia closed her eyes. A single tear fell onto the table. 2 lives met there, not by coincidence, but by the silent force of a destiny that had waited far too long to bring them together. And yet, there was still one more truth, a truth that had not yet been revealed. The bakery was so quiet that the faint hum of the refrigerator could be heard, the crackle of cooling bread on the trays, the soft echo of their unsteady breaths. That scene, so ordinary on the outside, was, on the inside, an emotional earthquake impossible to describe. Lucia had her hands intertwined on the table, her knuckles white from tension. Her eyes remained fixed on the scar on her arm, as if seeing it forced her to confront a version of herself she had never imagined. The woman across from her tried to control her tears. She didn't want to overwhelm her. She didn't want to frighten her. But the truth was there between them, breathing, taking shape, demanding to be spoken. If I'm your daughter, Lucia repeated, her voice barely audible. Then who have I been all these years? The woman felt her heart tighten into a fist. You were a loved child, she said tenderly. Don't doubt that. But you were also a lost child, a child I couldn't protect. Her voice broke. Until now. Lucia pressed her lips together. That sentence touched a place inside her no one had reached before, a place that had always been empty, a place that had always hurt, though she never understood why. She took a breath, as if gathering all her strength for the next question. And why? She swallowed. Why did my grandmother hide me? The woman lowered her gaze, feeling a knot burn in her throat. Because she was afraid. Afraid of what? Lucia asked, almost pleading. Afraid of losing you, the woman whispered. Afraid of admitting what she had done. And maybe afraid of facing me. Lucia leaned back in her chair as if those words had struck her. But it wasn't her decision, she said with a tremor of indignation. She couldn't take me like that. The woman nodded. I know. She wiped away a tear. I tell myself that every day. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. It was as if the air itself had grown too thick to hold any more emotion. Finally, Lucia lifted her head and looked directly into the woman's eyes. There was fear. There was pain. There was uncertainty. But for the first time, there was also a spark that hadn't been there before. The possibility of belonging to someone. If I really am your daughter, she said softly, what do we do now? The woman inhaled deeply. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't know what legal steps, what tests, what paths awaited them. But she did know one thing, one she had carried for 2 decades as a silent promise. Now, she said, her voice soft but steady, we stay together, wherever this truth takes us. Lucia blinked, surprised by the certainty in those words. But what if, her voice trembled, what if I'm not her? What if we're wrong? The woman held her hands gently. If you're not, I promise I'll walk with you until we find the truth. And if I am, Lucia whispered, her voice barely a thread. Then, the woman smiled through her tears. Welcome home, daughter. Lucia swallowed hard. Her eyes glistened. Her breathing quickened. But just when the moment seemed to grow more intimate, more fragile, something interrupted the scene. A sharp knock. Both women startled. Someone had pushed the bakery door open, despite it being closed. The bell tinkled, slicing through the silence like a knife. Lucia stood up immediately. But I locked it, she murmured. The woman also rose to her feet, her heart racing. A tension filled the air. The door opened just a little. A silhouette appeared from the darkness outside. Excuse me, a male voice said. Is Lucia here? Lucia frowned. A shiver ran down the woman's spine. The man stepped inside, revealing his face, and in his hands he carried an old folder, folded, with her name written on it in blue ink. The woman's heart stopped, because that name was hers. I think this belongs to you, the man said, looking straight at her. The folder she had lost more than 20 years ago. The one containing her own investigation, her notes, her photos. Everything. How had it ended up in this man's hands? Lucia stepped back. The woman felt a deep dizziness. The man took a breath and said, I have something you both need to know. And the man closed the door behind him with an unsettling kind of care, as if he didn't want to make noise, or as if he feared being heard from the outside. Lucia and the woman looked at him with a mix of alertness, distrust, and something deeper. The sense that this stranger was a key piece in the puzzle they had been trying to assemble for decades. The folder in his hands seemed heavy, not because of the paper, but because of the history it carried. Who are you? Lucia asked, her voice tense. The man took a deep breath before answering. My name is Andres, and I knew your grandmother. The air seemed to thicken again. Lucia narrowed her eyes. My grandmother? Since when? For many years, he said, lowering his gaze for a moment. She trusted me, and she asked me to keep this. He lifted the folder. Until the right moment came. The woman felt a shiver run down her back. The right moment. And what would that moment be? The man looked straight into her eyes. When the truth returned on its own, when it stopped being a secret kept and became something impossible to ignore. Lucia swallowed hard. Are you saying my grandmother knew this day would come? He nodded. She feared it, and she also hoped for it. She knew she couldn't hide it forever. She knew life, sooner or later, would tie together the threads she had cut. Lucia lowered her gaze, breathing unsteadily. The woman took a step forward. What's inside that folder? She asked firmly. The man held the folder against his chest for a second, as if hesitating. Then he reached it out to her. Everything your grandmother couldn't tell you, and everything you didn't know for these 23 years. The The woman took the folder with trembling hands. She recognized the material immediately, the texture, the marks, even the small ink stain in the upper corner. It was her folder, her file, the one that had vanished in the middle of her desperation. Her eyes welled with tears. This was in my house. It disappeared the same year my daughter. She couldn't finish the sentence. Lucia stepped closer. My grandmother took it. No, Andres interrupted. I took it. Silence fell like a blow. Lucia's eyes widened in horror. You stole this folder? The man nodded, ashamed. Your grandmother asked me to. She told me there was a woman searching desperately. Too desperately. She said that if that woman found something, she might hurt herself or make things worse. The woman felt her heart stop. That folder was all I had. It was my only way to keep looking for my daughter. I know, Andres whispered, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. But your grandmother, she was scared. She didn't know how to explain it. She asked me to keep the folder until what she feared from the very first day was finally confirmed. Lucia felt a deep vertigo. What did she fear? Andres inhaled deeply, as if he were about to unload a weight he had carried for far too long. She feared that the little girl was yours. The woman closed her eyes, fists tightening. Then her voice cracked. Why didn't she give her back? Why didn't she come to me? Why didn't she tell the truth? The man lowered his head. Because your grandmother believed she had saved a child, and she didn't want to lose her by returning her. She thought she was doing the right thing. She was wrong. She knew it. That's why she left me instructions, for when she could no longer face the truth herself. Tears were streaming down Lucia's face. So why didn't I know anything? Why didn't anyone ever tell me who I was? Because your grandmother was terrified that if you found out you would hate her, and she lived her entire life with that fear. The woman opened the folder. Inside were children's drawings, newspaper clippings about the case, letters she herself had written to her daughter and never sent, worn-out photographs, and among all those papers, there was a sealed envelope. Lucia looked at it, her heart pounding like a drum. What's that? The man answered in a whisper. A letter for you, written by your grandmother. Lucia felt her knees weaken. For me, yes, Andres said. But she said you should only read it when you were ready to know the truth. The woman looked at her with a mix of love, fear, and hope. Lucia, she whispered, do you want to open it? Lucia held the envelope. Her fingers trembled. Her breathing was shallow. Her soul was about to break or be rebuilt. Finally, she said, yes, I want to know. I need to know who I am. The embrace lasted long seconds, but for the first time in 23 years, time seemed to be on their side. It was as if life, after tearing them apart, were now trying to mend the damage with a single gesture. Lucia clung to the woman, to her mother, as if the world might vanish if she let go. The woman buried her face in her shoulder, breathing in a scent she didn't recognize, yet somehow found familiar, a distant echo of something she had loved and lost. When they finally separated, both had their faces soaked in tears, but also a new light in their eyes. There is something else we need to talk about, Andres said cautiously. Lucia and her mother looked at him, though neither wanted to let go of the other's hand. Your grandmother, he continued, didn't act alone. The woman felt a sharp sting in her chest. Lucia frowned. What do you mean? She asked. Andres took a deep breath, like someone about to reveal something heavy. The day I found the girl, it wasn't a coincidence. I was working nearby and saw your grandmother, with her in her arms. She was nervous. She told me she had found the lost girl, that she was going to take her to the police. But after that, she never did. The woman felt a chill. You knew from the beginning? Andres looked at her with pain in his eyes. I knew she had made the wrong decision. Yes, but I didn't know who the girl was. I didn't know there was a mother searching like that. When I found out, months had already passed, and your grandmother asked me to stay silent. She said it was for everyone's good. Lucia lowered her head, processing the idea of an entire life built on silence. But the truth doesn't hold forever, Andres added. Your grandmother knew it. That's why she wrote those letters. That's why she kept that box. And that's why she gave me the folder, hoping that someday the two of you would find each other. The woman breathed deeply. The anger, the pain, the shock, everything mixed inside her. But there was something else too. A strong, almost instinctive desire not to lose her daughter again now that she stood before her. Lucia took her mother's hand once more. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. The woman closed her eyes, holding back another sob. Never again, she said. I will never let you go again. Lucia rested her forehead against hers. Both breathed in sync, as if their souls were trying to remember what it felt like to be together. Andres, with a solemn gesture, stepped closer. There's something else in the folder, he said, something the grandmother left to close the circle. The woman opened the folder again. Among the papers there was a small envelope, different from the others, heavier, sturdier. What is this? She asked. The grandmother said that envelope contained the one thing that could explain why she made the decision she made. Lucia watched, a knot of fear and hope tight in her chest. Open it, she said. The woman took a deep breath, broke the seal, and pulled out the contents. It was a child's bracelet, worn, broken on one end. Lucia stared at it, confused, but the woman recognized it instantly. This bracelet, she whispered. You were wearing it the day you disappeared. It was your favorite. You never took it off. Lucia brought a hand to her neck, as if searching for a hidden memory. Sometimes, she said quietly, a bracelet comes to mind, like I used to wear one as a child, but I never knew where it came from. The woman smiled through her tears. From me, daughter. It was mine when I was your age. I gave it to you, the day before I lost you. Lucia covered her mouth with both hands. The woman embraced her again. This time, the embrace wasn't a cry of pain. It was an embrace of recognition, as if their souls at last were saying at the same time, we are family. But just as the emotion began to settle, Andres cleared his throat with a worried tone. There's something else, something that's not in the letter, something the grandmother told me the day she died. The woman and Lucia turned toward him at the same time. What is it? The woman asked, her heart tightening. Andres lowered his gaze, gathering the strength to speak. She said that the day she found the girl, she wasn't alone. A heavy silence fell over the three. Lucia felt a chill run through her. The woman instinctively gripped her hand. What does that mean? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Andres lifted his eyes, and in them was a secret held for years. It means someone else knew the truth, someone who never came forward, someone who might have seen everything. Lucia swallowed. Who? Andres inhaled deeply before saying it. The girl's father. The woman felt her soul slip out of her body. Lucia went completely still, and the story had just entered its darkest part. The word fell like a lightning bolt inside a closed room. The father. Lucia froze, as if someone had stopped time inside her body. The woman, her mother, felt her heart pounding so violently she feared everyone could hear it. What do you mean by that? She asked, her voice breaking. Andres took a deep breath, knowing he was about to open a wound that had never healed. Her grandmother told me that the day she found the girl, she wasn't the first person to see her. She said that when she turned the corner, she saw a man walking away, a man who stopped, looked back, and then left without turning around again. A strange cold ran down Lucia's back. My father saw me. He saw me lost and he walked away. The woman inhaled sharply, fighting to keep her composure. No, she whispered. No, that can't be. He was desperate. He searched with me. He called the police. He couldn't have known it was you. Andres looked at her with a mix of compassion and pain. I'm not saying he knew who she was, but I am saying that the grandmother saw a man there, and she described that man in detail. Details that matched him. The woman felt a hard blow in her chest. Dark hair, grey jacket, medium height, a few days beard. It was the exact description of her daughter's father. Back then, Lucia trembled. And why? Her voice cracked. Why didn't he come back? Why didn't he pick me up? Why didn't he take me home? The woman knew she had to answer, but she had no answer that wouldn't hurt. Lucia, she said, tears held back. Maybe he didn't recognize you. Maybe you were facing away. Maybe he never imagined that you were his daughter. Maybe? Lucia took a step back. That maybe cost me an entire life. The silence hung heavy in the air. Andres stepped in gently. The grandmother told me he did stop, that he hesitated, that he even took a step toward the child, but something made him back away. The woman covered her mouth. A lump rose in her throat. He was always afraid of making mistakes. He was impulsive, insecure, and after the disappearance, he had panic attacks for months. He lived with guilt. Lucia clenched her fists. Is he alive? She suddenly asked. The woman swallowed hard. No, he died 10 years ago. Lucia squeezed her eyes shut. Then we'll never know the truth, right? The woman embraced her shoulders. We won't know what was going on in his mind that day, but we do know something. She cupped Lucia's face softly. That he loved you, that he searched for you until the last day of his life, and that he would never have accepted losing you. Lucia cried silently, a different kind of cry, a cry mixing anger, sadness, and relief. Because even though she'd never get explanations, at least she knew he hadn't abandoned her by choice. Andres stepped a little closer. The grandmother said one more thing, something I think you both should know. Both lifted their eyes at the same time. She said the father, the day he saw the girl, was disoriented. He looked sad, lost. That maybe he wasn't aware of what he was seeing. The woman breathed deeply. He was on medication. After the trauma, he was. It's possible he didn't even know what day it was. It's possible he didn't recognize you, or even himself. Lucia covered her eyes with both hands. It hurt. It hurt terribly, but also it relieved her. The woman hugged her tight, holding her as if she could shield her from the past. All of this, Lucia whispered, is broken pieces. My life is broken pieces. The woman held her even tighter. And we're going to put them together, all of them, together. Lucia rested her head on her shoulder. It was the first time it felt like home. Andres cleared his throat, glancing toward the window. There is one last thing the grandmother asked me to deliver. Something that... His voice trembled. I kept locked away for years. Lucia and the woman stared at him intensely. What is it? The woman asked, heart racing. Andres opened his bag and pulled out a thick envelope, sealed with old wax. She said this envelope contains the full explanation of what happened that day. The air vanished from the room. Lucia gripped her mother's hand. Andres extended the envelope, and she said, it must only be opened when the two of you were together. Lucia looked at her mother. Her mother looked at Lucia. Fate had brought them together, and now they held the key to a secret buried for more than 2 decades. Do we open it? Lucia asked, her voice trembling. The woman took a deep breath. Deep, painful, necessary. Yes, she whispered. Together. The envelope looked old, but untouched. The burgundy wax seal carried a deep imprint, the initial A from the grandmother. Lucia held it for a few seconds, as if the object weighed far more than paper and ink. The woman placed her hand over hers. Both breathed at the same rhythm. Both trembled. Destiny had waited 23 years for this moment. Together, the woman repeated. Whatever happens. Lucia nodded. She tore the envelope open very carefully, as if afraid of hurting a memory. Inside were several folded pages, thicker than an ordinary letter, and an additional photograph. Lucia took it out first, and when her mother saw it, she felt her soul leave her body. It was the last photo she had taken of her daughter on the morning she disappeared. Lucia examined the picture with a slight frown, as if something inside her was awakening. This, she whispered. I've seen this, somewhere, in a dream, or something like that. The woman brought a hand to her mouth. The memory was there, distant, blurred, but alive. Lucia set the photo on the table and unfolded the pages. The grandmother had written a long confession, a confession that seemed to have waited an entire lifetime to be spoken. Lucia read aloud, her voice breaking, "To the woman who was a mother without knowing it, and to the daughter who didn't know she already had a home, this is the truth that will haunt me, even after death." The woman, unable to speak, simply squeezed Lucia's hand. The young woman continued, "I did not find the girl by accident. I heard crying, I followed it. I saw her running among the trees in the square. And I also saw a man desperately searching for her. But he walked away in the opposite direction." The woman swallowed hard. It was him, her husband, her daughter's father. The letter went on. "The girl got scared when she saw me. She didn't speak. She cried non-stop. She said 3 words, 'I'm scared, Grandma,' and she hugged me." Lucia stopped reading, her eyes opened wide, trembling. "Grandma?" she murmured. "I called her that." The woman covered her mouth with both hands. Lucia returned to the letter. "I knew at that moment something was wrong, that she had suffered a great fright. I took her with me to calm her. I was going to look for help, but that same day I heard that a little girl had disappeared. And when they described the place, and the clothes, and the hair clip, the woman felt dizzy." Lucia continued, "I panicked. I thought that if I handed her over, they would say I had taken her. I thought the police, out of fear, might separate her from everyone. I thought I would lose her forever. And the girl called me Grandma. She hugged me. She calmed down with me." The woman's heart broke and rebuilt itself at the same time. Lucia kept reading, tears falling onto the paper. "I made the wrong decision, the worst of my life. But then I saw something that made me believe she would not be safe." Lucia stopped. Her hands shook. "What?" the woman whispered. "What did she see?" Lucia returned to the letter. "I saw the father, the same man from before. He was near the square, arguing with someone. He was distressed, out of control, and when the girl saw him, she stepped back and hid behind me." The woman was in shock. "No," she whispered, barely breathing. "No, that can't be true." Lucia went on. "I thought he might have frightened her. I thought she should not be returned to the arms of someone she feared. I was wrong. I let myself be carried away by what I saw, by what I believed." The woman collapsed into a chair. She couldn't take any more. She said in a broken voice, "He was desperate, but he would never." Lucia wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Mom, it wasn't your fault. Or mine, or hers. Not entirely. It was fear. Everything was fear." She resumed reading. "I raised the girl believing it was the right thing, but with every passing day, I knew the lie was growing. That one day the two of you would meet, and that I would have to face what I had done." Lucia inhaled deeply and read the final lines. "I can only ask for forgiveness, and I hope that the love you have for each other is stronger than my mistakes." The last sentence was written with smudged ink, as if the grandmother had cried while writing it. Lucia folded the letter slowly. She placed it on the table and looked at her mother. The silence between them was no longer filled with pain. It was filled with understanding. "Mom," Lucia said softly, "I don't want to keep living in the past. I don't want more fear. I don't want more sadness." The woman touched her face, trembling. "Me neither, sweetheart." Lucia held her hands. "Then, let's move forward, together. No secrets, no guilt, just you and me, starting again." The woman broke into a soft cry. Lucia hugged her. This time, it wasn't an embrace of discovery, nor of shock, nor of pain. It was an embrace of choice. The two choosing each other. The two rebuilding themselves. The emotional climax was approaching, but there was one more step, one final step. Lucia and her mother remained embraced for a long time, as if time itself finally understood that they needed a pause to cry, to breathe. to heal a piece of history that had remained frozen for 23 years. When they finally separated, their faces were wet, but their eyes were no longer the same. They were eyes that at last recognized each other. The woman took Lucia's hands with an almost reverent tenderness. "Daughter," she whispered, testing that word she had kept inside her chest for decades. "I know nothing can give us back the time we lost, but we can build what comes next." Lucia nodded, her face full of contained emotion. "I want that too," she replied. "I want to know who I am. I want to know where I come from. I want to know you." The woman stroked her cheek with the softness of a mother who had waited a lifetime for that gesture. "And I want to get to know you again," she said, her voice breaking. "I want to know who raised you, what you like, what you dream, what you fear. I want," she swallowed hard, "to be what I couldn't be before." Lucia gave a sad smile. "We can start slowly. We don't need to rush." A sentence so simple, but filled with so much healing. Andres, who had remained silent so as not to interrupt the moment, took a step forward. "There is something else I believe you should know," he said. "The grandmother left one last instruction, a phrase she repeated several times in her final days." Lucia and her mother lifted their heads at the same time. "What phrase?" the woman asked cautiously. Andres took a deep breath. "She said, 'I didn't find her. I only took care of her until her home came back for her.'" Lucia felt a shiver run down her back. The woman pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed with emotion. It was the grandmother's silent way of admitting what she never had the courage to confess while alive. Lucia had never been hers. She had always belonged to her mother, always to that family. Destiny had only delayed their reunion. Lucia looked around the bakery, the place where everything had begun, and the place where everything had been reborn. "Can we step outside for a moment?" she asked, wiping her tears. "I feel like I need air and to process all this with you." "Not in here." The woman nodded. "We'll go wherever you want. I'm with you." The two walked toward the door. Before stepping out, Lucia stopped and looked at the letter on the table. She approached it slowly, folded it carefully, and placed it inside her bag. "I want to keep this," she said softly. "Not as a painful memory, but as the point where our real story began." The woman smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Then, let's keep what matters together." They stepped out of the bakery into the night. The street was quiet, lit by a few lamps. The air was cold, but not unpleasant. It was a cold that awakened you, that made you breathe deeper. They walked without hurry. For the first time, side by side, no rush, no fear, no shadow between them, Lucia looked at her mother as they walked. "Mom," she said, as if trying the sound for the first time. The woman stopped. The word cut through her like a bolt of lightning. "Yes," she answered with a smile she could barely contain. Lucia took a deep breath. "Can we go to your house?" A simple question, but it meant everything. It meant accepting the truth. It meant crossing the past. It meant taking the first step back home. The woman covered her mouth, moved to tears. "Of course," she replied. "From today on, it's your home too." Lucia smiled through her tears. They took each other's hand, and they walked toward the home that had waited 23 years to be whole again. But something was still missing. Something destiny had saved for the ending. The night was quiet as they walked toward the house. The glow from the windows seemed to flicker softly, as if the entire city were breathing more slowly so as not to interrupt the moment. Lucia and her mother walked hand in hand, unhurried, as if each step were part of a sacred ritual, the return. When they reached the front of the house, Lucia froze. The woman released her hand, respecting her space. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Lucia nodded, though her eyes were filled with emotions she couldn't yet name. "I feel like," she murmured, "like I've been here before. I don't know how, I don't know why, but something in me recognizes this place." The woman felt her heart tremble. "Maybe," she whispered, "the body remembers what memory forgot." Lucia took a deep breath. They went inside. The house was silent, warm, with the smell of old wood and fading coffee. Lucia's gaze drifted slowly around the living room, as if she was searching for hidden fragments of a lost childhood. She stopped in front of a shelf full of framed pictures. "Can I?" she asked, pointing to one of them. "They're yours," her mother said softly, "even though you never got to see them." Lucia picked up one of the photos. It was her, small, smiling with bright, glowing eyes, with the hair clip in her hair. She touched it with her fingertips. "I don't remember this," she whispered. The woman stepped behind her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "But you were here," she said. "You lived your early years here? You were happy here?" Lucia closed her eyes, as if the words seeped directly into her soul. "I want to," she murmured. "Remember it someday." The woman smiled through tears. "You will. And if you don't, I'll tell you. Every detail." Suddenly, a soft noise broke the silence. A thud, very small, coming from the hallway in the back. Lucia's eyes opened immediately. The woman frowned. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," Lucia replied. "Is someone else here?" The woman shook her head. "No, I've lived alone ever since your father." She stopped, swallowing the memory. "For years now." The thud came again. Lucia felt a chill, not from fear, but from intuition. They both walked slowly down the hallway. At the end, a door was slightly ajar. The room that had never been opened since the day her daughter disappeared. "It's," the woman whispered, "your room." Lucia felt her heart flip inside her chest. "My room?" The woman nodded. "I never changed it. I never wanted to move anything. I never could." Lucia approached. The door was gently moving with the draft from a window left half open. That was the source of the sound. But what was inside was infinitely more important. Lucia pushed the door open carefully, and she saw it, a small room filled with soft colors, drawings taped to the wall, a tiny bed with an embroidered blanket, old toys, a doll with a blue dress, a shelf full of children's books. Lucia brought her hands to her mouth. "This," she whispered, "this was my world." The woman cried silently. "Yes, my love, all of this was yours. Nothing here has changed since the day I lost you." Lucia walked forward slowly, as if afraid to break something fragile. She touched the doll, the shelf, the blanket. Each object seemed to awaken a soft echo, a vibration inside her. Not clear memories, but sensations. "I feel," she said in a trembling voice, "that I was here. I feel that something inside me recognizes every corner." The woman smiled through tears. "When you were little, you slept hugging that doll. You liked colorful storybooks, and you always asked me to leave the door slightly open, so the hallway light would keep you company." Lucia closed her eyes. A tear fell slowly. "That," she whispered, "I still do. I sleep with the door slightly open." The woman embraced her from behind, trembling. "Because," she said in the softest voice she had ever spoken, "because you've kept looking for the light you lost for so many years." Lucia turned slowly, and she looked at her, in her eyes, in her soul. "Mom," she said, her voice finally steady, "I don't want to lose any more time. I want to start my life with you, from today on." The woman collapsed into a cry of relief, a cry of healing, of a love that had waited half a lifetime to rise again. She held her tightly. Lucia embraced her back, and for the first time, without fear, without doubt, without shadows. But as they hugged, something glimmered on the shelf, hidden behind the children's books. An envelope, sealed, with the same burgundy wax. Lucia saw it over her mother's shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "what is that?" The woman exhaled sharply, surprised. She hadn't seen it before either. They separated and approached slowly. Lucia took the envelope. No name, no date. Just one sentence. "For when the truth has been accepted." Lucia and her mother exchanged a look. Destiny still held one last piece. The envelope felt heavy, as if what lay inside wasn't paper, but destiny itself. Lucia held it for a moment, feeling a faint tremor run through her fingers. Her mother stood beside her, so close she could hear the irregular rhythm of her breathing. "I didn't know this was here," the woman whispered. "I never saw this envelope before." Lucia stepped a little closer to the shelf, studying the exact spot where it had been hidden, behind a storybook, right in the corner where no adult would ever look, but where a child might have left it. "Do you think Lucia murmured. "Do you think I put it there when I was little?" The woman swallowed hard. "It's possible. Or your father could have left it. Or someone who came into this room before I closed it." Lucia pressed the envelope against her chest. Whoever it was wanted this moment to happen now. Both of them sat on the tiny bed, the same bed where Lucia had slept during her first years. The woman inhaled deeply. "Ready?" Lucia nodded. She tore the envelope open carefully. Inside there was a single folded sheet of paper and a small object wrapped in a fine piece of cloth. Lucia set the object on the bed, but opened the letter first. Her eyes scanned the first line, and her heart lurched. "To the one who will someday return to this room." The truth was never lost. It only needed to be found at the right time. Lucia frowned. The handwriting. It wasn't her grandmother's, nor her mother's. It was firmer, rounder, masculine. Her mother, seeing it, felt a shock hit her chest. "That handwriting," she whispered. "It's your father's." Lucia froze. "My dad?" The woman nodded softly. Her eyes filled with new tears, not of pain, but of deep, aching tenderness. Lucia continued reading, her voice trembling. "If someday you come back to this room, if someday you grow into who you were meant to be, I want you to know something I was never able to tell you face to face." Lucia trembled. Her mother took her hand gently. "I never stopped looking for you. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being your father, even though life tore you away from me." Lucia closed her eyes tightly. The tears fell without her permission. The letter continued. "If you don't find us before I'm gone, I want you to know the most important truth of all. Your mother never abandoned you. She was the light in the search, and I was the one who failed to recognize the path." The woman sobbed. Lucia could hardly breathe. "Forgive me for not understanding. Forgive me for letting fear win. Forgive me for not being stronger that day in the square." The woman covered her face with her hands. Lucia kept reading, her voice breaking more and more. "I hope you read this someday with her by your side. I hope destiny repairs what it broke in us. I hope you come home. I hope you understand that I was always with you, even when you couldn't see me." Lucia fell silent. A silence so deep it seemed to envelop them completely. The letter ended with one simple line, written like a final sigh. "My little girl, if you're reading this, then at last you are where you were always meant to be." Lucia let the letter fall onto the bed. Her face was bathed in tears. Her mother embraced her tightly, trembling. "Your father," she said between sobs. "He loved you more than I ever imagined anyone could. He searched until his body couldn't anymore, and he left this for you." Lucia rested her forehead against her mother's chest. "I never," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I never thought I could feel whole one day, but now I feel like I have everything." Her mother held her tighter. "You have your story, you have your truth, and," she kissed her forehead, "you have your family back." Lucia inhaled deeply and pulled away gently. "We still need to open what's wrapped," she said, looking at the small package on the bed. The woman nodded. Lucia unwrapped the cloth and inside found a small metal object, a keychain, a simple keychain rusted by time, but with something engraved on it. Lucia turned it slowly, and then she saw it, her name. Lucia, etched clumsily, just the way a father might write it on an improvised gift filled with love. Lucia covered her mouth, trembling. Her mother cried openly. That keychain had been bought for her daughter before she disappeared. It had been part of a set of keys he always carried, and which for years she believed had been lost. But it hadn't been lost. It had been here, waiting. Lucia pressed the keychain to her heart. "Now," she whispered, "nothing is missing." Her mother hugged her. They both cried, but this time it was a cry of closure, of union, of rebuilding. Destiny had made its final turn. The truth no longer had shadows. All that remained was the end. Lucia left the room holding the keychain in her hand the way someone holds a tiny treasure capable, all by itself, of rebuilding an entire life. The woman, her mother, walked behind her, silent, respectful, letting her fingertips brush the wall as if she still couldn't believe that these hallways, which she had crossed so many times in tears, were now watching her walk accompanied. When they reached the living room, Lucia stopped. She looked around. It was as if the house had changed, without changing at all. As if, with her return, the air had filled with light. As if the house was breathing again. "You know something?" Lucia said, looking around. "I feel like I've always been here. Not in my memories, but somewhere inside me." The woman stepped closer, her voice trembling softly. "Because this place was always yours. Even if you didn't remember it, it remembered you." Lucia smiled, her eyes shining. "Maybe I remembered it too, without knowing it." The woman placed a hand on her cheek. "The soul," she said tenderly, "never forgets where it belongs." They both sat on the sofa. For a few seconds, neither spoke. They simply breathed together, absorbing the weight and the beauty of what they were living. Lucia played with the keychain between her fingers. "This object," she whispered, "it's so simple, but it feels as heavy as my entire story." The woman smiled gently. "Because that's what it is, daughter. Your father bought it for you with love, and by keeping it here, he left you a message that one day you would return." Lucia pressed the keychain to her chest. "Do you think he knew? Do you think he sensed that I would come back?" The woman took a deep breath. "I think," she whispered softly, "that love recognizes paths the mind can't explain, and I think he never let go of your hand, even if he couldn't hold it." Lucia closed her eyes. A single tear slid down slowly. "I would have liked to meet him. Really meet him." The woman stroked her hair gently, fulfilling a gesture she had waited years to make. "And he would have given anything to see you like this, to see you alive, to see you come home." Lucia rested her head on her mother's shoulder, and for a few seconds neither said a word. But it wasn't a heavy silence. It was a silence filled with peace. For the first time, there was no pain between them. For the first time, they breathed as mother and daughter. A soft sound interrupted the moment. "Did you hear that?" Lucia asked. It was a faint metallic tap, very soft, coming from the hallway. The woman stood up, puzzled, and walked toward it. As she looked more closely, she smiled. A draft had moved the door of the child's room, knocking it gently against the wall. But it wasn't the sound that made her smile. It was what she saw beside the door, a small fallen frame with a photo inside. She picked it up, blew the dust off, and when she saw the image, tears filled her eyes. It was Lucia at 3 years old, with the same radiant smile, the same hair clip. Sitting on her father's shoulders, Lucia approached her. "What is a photo?" her mother said, her voice trembling. "That I thought I'd lost." Lucia took the picture. She stared at it for a long moment, and then something happened. A soft sensation, like a memory that isn't quite a memory, but something that reaches from deep inside. A light, an echo. "I feel like," she murmured, "like I was there." The woman squeezed her arm gently. "You were, sweetheart. That man," she touched his face on the photo with her fingertip, "loved you with everything he had." Lucia smiled through tears. "I know. I can feel it." The woman closed her eyes, grateful. They went back to the living room, sat again. The night moved quietly outside, as if the world understood it needed to stay silent while they healed. Lucia took a deep breath. "I want to stay here, tonight." The woman pressed a hand over her heart. "My love, you have no idea what it means to hear that." Lucia settled on the sofa. She looked at her mother. "I don't want this to be an ending. I want it to be a beginning." The woman smiled through her tears. "It will be. I promise." Lucia took her hand. "Sometimes," she said softly, "I think that if I hadn't walked into that bakery today, none of this would have happened." The woman looked at her with a mix of surprise and tenderness. It wasn't a coincidence, Lucia. It was destiny. Life was guiding you back. Lucia exhaled deeply. Maybe today was the day it was all meant to happen. The woman smiled. Yes, today, life brought you home. Lucia rested her head on her shoulder, tired, but whole. Finally, whole. The night drifted on. The silence was warm. The calm was real. And for the first time in 23 years, the house slept in peace. The night was silent, wrapping the house in a peace it hadn't felt in decades. Lucia remained lying on the sofa, her eyes half closed, breathing in a way that wasn't just tiredness. It was relief, a deep, profound, almost spiritual relief. Her mother watched her from a few steps away, not wanting to interrupt the stillness of the moment. She had waited so long, cried so much, lost so much, and yet life had just returned to her the most sacred thing of all, her daughter. Lucia opened her eyes slowly. "Are you okay?" her mother asked from the soft dimness of the hallway. Lucia nodded. "Yes, but there's something that..." She paused. "Something that still weighs here." She placed her hand on her chest. Her mother sat beside her. "Tell me." Lucia took a deep breath, the kind one takes when searching for courage. "I'm afraid," she confessed. "Afraid of not knowing how to be a daughter. Afraid of not knowing how to fit in. Afraid that I won't be enough after so many years." Her mother felt a sharp ache in her heart. Gently, she took her daughter's hands. "Lucia, no one is born knowing how to be a daughter. No one is born knowing how to be a mother. We learn along the way. We make mistakes, and we try again." Lucia lowered her gaze. "But I have 23 years out of place. I have empty spaces I don't know how to fill." The woman smiled with tenderness, a tenderness only a mother can give. "And I have empty spaces too," she said softly. "I have closed rooms, hidden photos, birthdays I cried through alone. But those empty spaces aren't here to hurt anymore. They're here for us to fill together." Lucia swallowed hard. Her eyes shimmered. "Do you think we can do it?" Her mother cupped her face with loving firmness. "I don't think so. I know so. From the moment you said, 'Mom,' everything aligned, everything healed." Lucia pressed her forehead against hers. They stayed like that, breathing together, stitching back what life had torn apart. But something else needed to be said. Lucia knew it. Her eyes filled again. "Mom," she whispered, "I'm happy I found you, but also I feel guilty." The woman frowned, surprised. "Guilty? Why?" Lucia pressed her lips together. "For loving the one who raised me, for seeing her as my family, for defending her when I didn't know the truth. I feel like I'm betraying something." Her mother inhaled slowly. Then she smiled. A kind of smile Lucia had never seen from her before. A smile made of pure acceptance. "You're not betraying anyone, sweetheart. She gave you what she could. She took care of you. She protected you. And even though her decision was wrong, one kind of love doesn't erase another." A silent tear slipped down Lucia's cheek. "Doesn't it hurt you to hear that I loved her?" Her mother shook her head, firm and clear. "No, it relieves me, because it means you weren't alone, that you weren't crying in the hands of someone cruel, that someone, even with mistakes, loved you. What more can a mother ask for when she isn't there to protect her child?" Lucia broke down in tears. Her mother held her tight, very tight. "Thank you," Lucia whispered through her crying. "Thank you for not asking me to forget." Her mother closed her eyes and kissed her head. "I would never ask you that. I only want you to give me a place, whatever place you choose, in your life from now on." Lucia lifted her face. Her expression shifted. It opened. It healed. "That place," she said with the firmest voice she had used all night, "that place is yours, Mom. It always was. I just took a long time to come back." The woman cried with a deep, sacred relief. "My girl," she whispered, "you're here now. That's all that matters." They hugged again, and that hug wasn't for healing wounds, nor for repairing the past. That hug was to seal the future. A future with no more secrets, no more silence, no more distance. a future where, finally, they were family. Outside, the night remained quiet, but inside the house something had awakened, something luminous, something whole, something that looked very much like peace. Lucia breathed deeply and rested against her mother. "You know," she said with a gentle smile, "I don't want this night to end." Her mother rested her head on hers. "Then it won't, because tonight is the beginning of everything." The house, which had remained frozen in time for so long, finally came back to life. Dawn was slowly approaching, painting the house with a soft blue tone, that color that only appears when the night is about to surrender to the day. Lucia and her mother were still together on the sofa, wide awake, unwilling to break the magic of that night that had finally united everything that once was broken. Lucia stared at the keychain in her hand. She turned it, pressed it, held it against her chest. It was small, but now she knew it was one of the last traces of her father, the final bridge he had left to guide her back home. "Can I ask you something?" Lucia said softly. Her mother looked at her, a new calm shining in her eyes. "Of course, sweetheart." Lucia drew in a deep breath. "How did you keep going after losing me? After so much pain?" The woman lowered her gaze as if searching through years she had kept locked away. "I survived," she said. "I didn't live. I just kept going. I got up so the days would pass. I slept so another day I didn't want could end. And I prayed that wherever you were, someone was taking care of you." Lucia placed her hand on her mother's arm. "They did," she whispered. "They cared for me. In their own way, but they did." The woman smiled, tears forming again. "And I never stopped waiting for you." They fell silent for a moment, a silence full of truth. The sky was beginning to brighten through the window. The first sunlight touched the table, illuminating the photograph they had left there, Lucia, 3 years old, on her father's shoulders. The woman stood up, took the photo gently, and offered it to Lucia. "I want you to have this," she said. "Your father would have wanted it to be yours." Lucia took the photo carefully. Looking at it, she felt something different. Not a full memory, but a sensation, a warm familiarity. She said softly, "He looks so happy." Her mother nodded with a tender smile. "He was. You were the greatest joy of his life." Lucia pressed the photo against her heart. "I wish," she whispered, "I wish there had been more time. I wish I could have known him." Her mother caressed her hair. "Sometimes the love we receive is greater than the time we're given to live it. And he loved you from the very first second." Lucia closed her eyes. And then she said something she had never said in her life. "Mom, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for keeping on searching for me, even when everything seemed lost." Her mother embraced her with infinite tenderness. "My daughter," she whispered, "I would have searched for your shadow, your voice, your name, in every corner of the world. There is no distance that can separate a mother from her child." Lucia cried on her shoulder. Her mother held her tightly. It was a different kind of crying, not of loss, but of return. When they pulled away, the sunlight had filled the room with a warm glow, as if the house itself was celebrating. Lucia stood up. "Can I see your room?" she asked with a timid smile. "I want to see where you slept while I wasn't here." Her mother laughed softly through her tears. "Of course, come." They walked through the house that was now a home for both of them. They passed the hallway, the kitchen where so many coffees had gone cold while waiting for answers, the window where she had cried countless nights, the door where she had waited for news that never came, and finally, they entered the mother's bedroom. Lucia looked at the simple bed, the nightstand with a small rosary, and beside it, a picture of herself, the same photo used in the missing person report. Lucia approached and touched the frame. "You kept me close all these years," she whispered. Her mother smiled. "I never stopped having you with me." Lucia took a deep breath. "Mom, I want to stay today, and tomorrow, and as long as I need, until this house feels as mine as it once was." Her mother hugged her tightly. "This house was always yours, and it always will be." They stepped outside into the yard. The sun was rising. Lucia looked at the clear sky, and for the first time in her life, She felt the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. "I'm ready," she said. "For what, sweetheart?" her mother asked. Lucia smiled. "To start again." Her mother held her hand. "Then, let's begin." And they walked back inside, toward the life waiting for them, toward the story they could finally write together, with no fear, no distance, no loss, only love. Because after 23 years, Lucia had come home, and the house finally came back to life. Sometimes life separates us just to teach us how to return. Lucia didn't remember her home, but her heart did. Her story was filled with silence, with broken paths, with wrong decisions, but also with hidden love, with tireless searching, with invisible threads that guided her back to the place where she always belonged. Because destiny doesn't always arrive when we expect it. Sometimes it comes only when we are finally ready to receive it. Tonight, after 23 years, a mother and a daughter found each other again, not because life is perfect, but because even in pain, love never stops searching. And if you are listening to this today, maybe you also have a thread waiting for you, a reunion, a truth, a person, a place, a piece of your story that is still beating somewhere in the world. It is never too late to come home. It is never too late to forgive. It is never too late to begin again. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on your own life, your wounds, your reunions, what you lost and what you can still recover, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And this space exists to remind you that life, even in silence, keeps writing new chapters for all of us. Welcome. Welcome to this family of stories that heal.